has said, the laws argument that can be made for it, and there is also the political religious argument made for it. We'll get into all of that in just a moment, but first, the story in court today. So yesterday, the centre had called the demand for legally recognizing same-sex marriage as a mere urban elitist view. Today in the Supreme Court, Solicitor General Tushar Mehta argued that rights have been provisioned for the LGBT community. Their dignity is upheld and they cannot be discriminated against. He also argued that the Hindu Marriage Act has been a code of conduct. The centre has also raised objections to the Supreme Court hearing this matter, saying it's only Parliament that is constitutionally permissible to decide on the creation of new laws. And the Solicitor General also asked the Supreme Court to let Parliament take a decision on whether to legalize same-sex marriage or not. Meanwhile, arguing on behalf of the petitioners, Advocate Mukul Rohatgi read out the preamble of the Constitution. He said, "It pains me to see that the government calling same-sex marriage an elitist concept and that the choice of an individual is not an elitist concept." He also claimed that the state is not willing to recognize anything apart from heterogeneous relationships. The petitioners argued that sexual orientation is an essential attribute to privacy and that any discrimination against any individual basis sexual orientation is deeply offensive to their dignity. Countering the centre's argument that Parliament should decide, the petitioners said that I cannot be told that I should wait for Parliament to grant me these rights when I'm dead and gone. They also said it's not good enough to say that we will leave you alone after the decriminalization and the abolishing of 377, but be happy now. To this, the Chief Justice-led bench observed that there is no absolute concept of man or an absolute concept of woman at all, and that our society has found much greater acceptance of same-sex relationships between the 377 judgment a few years ago and today. CJI Chandrachud also said it's not proper to leave LGBT community alone to be recognized by social institutions. The bench also argued that the court cannot deny that there is a legislative element involved. Now, the Supreme Court bench also asked the petitioners if the arguments could be confined to just the interpretation of the Special Marriage Act. The Special Marriage Act is for marriages that cannot be solemnized because of religion, whereas personal laws are governed by religious laws, so any alliance under personal law has to have social cum religious sanctity. The Special Marriage Act already speaks of marriage between any two persons, whereas personal laws do not allow same-sex marriages. The Special Marriages Act can be tweaked to make it gender neutral, whereas any change to personal laws can complicate the laws of succession, adoption, and divorce. There are currently more than 30 countries that recognize same-sex marriages, but in India, it's been a long fight for gay rights activists. In 2017, the Supreme Court ruled that sexual orientation is a protected right. The following year, the top court made the historic ruling of decriminalizing gay sex. Last year, the Supreme Court instituted protection for what it called atypical families, and now this historic hearing has begun on legalizing same-sex marriage, with the centre calling marriage exclusively a heterogeneous institution. But why are LGBTQ demanding legalizing same-sex marriage? Now, let's break down the current legal status as it exists in law today. Currently, same-sex couples are not allowed to have joint bank accounts. They cannot make any financial investments as a couple. They can't even sign any medical forms for their partners, consent forms as they are. Legal recognition could grant them adoption as well as property rights, which are extended to heterosexual couples. All right, let me open this up to our guests who are joining us. Shashank Shekhar Jha is a lawyer appearing in this case. Sonal Gyani is an LGBTQ activist. Paras Tomar, producer and actor. Harish Iyer, equal rights activist. And Priyanka Tandon will also be joining us. Let me start with you, Sonal Gyani. The argument put forth by the centre is that marriage in a country like India is essentially a religious construct. It is sort of solemnized by whichever religion you believe in, and therefore, in a country that is deeply religious conservative, this idea of legalizing same-sex marriage may not fly. A majority might actually resent such a move, and therefore, the centre is arguing that same-sex marriage should not be made legal. How would you counter that argument?
I would say that our country is known for its secularism, its diversity and its inclusion. The fact that a special marriage act even exists is, is a certificate to the fact that we consider that there are people with different religions who are part of this country. As far as the laws concerning the Hindu Marriage Act and the, the acts around marriage, the personal laws, while we may not have legal sanctity going through that route, it is not like Indians are not getting married under, religious customs. They are very much getting married abroad and within the country as well. Enough news reports will show you that. It is only that we don't have legal support. At the moment, I understand that the court wants to restrict themselves to a special marriage act, but even otherwise, there is definitely room for including our community.
So let me ask Paras Tomar, if the court, and this was something that came up in the conversation in court today, where the CJI was of the view that it may be better to look at it purely from a point of view of the Special Marriage Act, where it says any two persons who want to get married can get married. It is a civil contract. It is a civil union, if you will. If you go that route, the problem is then you're still not solving the issue of same-sex couples getting the same rights by marriage as heterosexual couples do, whether it is right to property, right to inheritance, right to alimony. All of these are not settled if you merely look at it from the point of view of the Special Marriage Act.
Yeah, it actually feels like abject tokenism, where it's almost like a little bone that will get thrown. But the thing is, as a citizen of India, as a proud citizen of India, as a tax-paying citizen of India, I think we're all at a point now where we're now demanding these equal rights, right? And it's very important. When I was hearing that argument, the fact that they talked about the fact that this was just an urban elite phenomena, I think my eyes rolled so hard, because LGBTQ, the T, the transgenders, that community talks so openly and vocally about the fact that they don't get jobs, that they have to become sex workers or that they become beggars. So, when I was hearing about this whole urban elite phenomena, it just feels like a construct where they very conveniently want to look at one side making the argument. Sure, there could be extremely poor people who are gay, but they're probably not coming to the forefront because they don't have livelihoods, they don't have money at the moment. At the same time, the other counter argument is, even if it is an urban elite phenomena, which it is not, so what? Because equality and rights have never depended on your social and monetary status. Because by the same logic, if these were poor people, would you then have said, oh, they're only poor, we don't need to listen to them? So either ways, that argument held no water for me, because when you're saying basically this is just urban elite or that they're not making money, it makes no sense. The second part, which I thought was very deeply questionable, when they talked about the fact that India is not ready, popularity, the popular vote doesn't often mean the thing is right. Popularity doesn't always mean it's the path of righteousness. Sati was a popular concept, but we had to get done with it. There was a point where everyone thought child labor was just fine. Everyone thought child marriage was just fine. But these amendments and these laws were changed because we had to move with times. Just because today a popular majority thinks that, LGBTQIA is just okay, it's not cool. When you talked about the fact that these laws will also make sure that now, even when I find a boyfriend, first of all, finding a boyfriend and a husband is still going to be a task. But even when I do find that person, to something as simple as just going to a club, it says only couples entry allowed. If I go with my boyfriend, I'm not allowed to enter a club because you need a girl. So, when they talked about the fact that so much will need to be changed, my response to that is, please do it, because as my job as a citizen is to uphold the constitution and to live by the law. And the constitution's job is to make sure that they give me equal rights.
So, Shashank Shekhar Jha, again, the fundamental point here is about you cannot discriminate against a class of citizens, no matter what the parameter is. And in this case, it's about sexual orientation. That has been clearly said in the right to privacy, the Aadhaar judgment, that you cannot that right to privacy is a fundamental right, and that sexual orientation is encompassed in the right to privacy. So you're basically discriminating against an entire class of citizens, against Article 14 and 15, simply because of their sexual orientation.
Namaste to everyone on the panel. I guess, no, we are taking it in a wrong way. See, Navtej judgment of Supreme Court and Puttu Swami judgment of Supreme Court and then Aadhaar card judgment of Supreme Court has clearly stated that Article 14, 19, 21 is for the individual's rights and it should not be disregarded. So for that point, I am saying that I am just saying that any type of phobia should be boycotted or avoided. And for that point, here is homophobia we are talking about. Now, I am completely in favor of that. But then the second point is, on the basis of those aspects, And on the basis of individual rights which you have already got, can you now claim or start claiming that you should also get the societal rights, or for that point all the institutions which are based on heterosexual community should also be granted or extended to homosexuals?
No, but
I guess that is
no,
one
no.
point.
Once again,
See,
society.
today
When you
in
say
Supreme
societal
Court,
rights, once again, it's not society that is giving me the rights to property in case a couple splits, or it is not society that's giving me right to adoption in case a heterosexual couple wants to adopt a child. It's the law. It's not society.
No. So no. So here is the problem. See, if you go through the history of marriage starts in Hinduism, where a child asks whether he is whether his parents can get married or not. The history I'm talking about. So when you go through that history, you need to understand that the most important chapter or aspect in the adoption is for the child. So how can now two people claim that no, the child who is not able to speak in front of you, we are able to, or we are capable enough to
But
take care
heterosexual
of
couples
him?
do that all the
It
time.
should
Who
be
want to adopt
given
are
to the
doing that
child
all the
then.
time. What sort of argument is that? Anyway,
Yeah, so,
let me
yeah,
ask.
and how
No,
does-
once again,
yeah,
let me
and-
ask Harish
yeah,
Iyer.
and I'll tell you.
One second, sir. One second.
Just give me.
Let,
give me 10
let,
seconds.
Harish Iyer, again, I keep coming back to, the right to equality and to treat everyone as equal before law is an established, fundamental tenet of our constitution. Article 14 and 15 give that guarantee to every single Indian citizen. Even when you go back and look at let's say the Sabarimala matter, I'm taking a purely religious matter, the reason why the Supreme Court struck down not allowing women of a certain age into that shrine was because it violates the basic rights of a class of citizens because of their gender, right? And the Supreme Court said that that is violative of 14 and 15. Here again, you're violating the basic rights of any individual, rights that you're perfectly willing to give to heterosexual couples, basis the fact that they're sexually oriented in a particular way.
I think I think Zara, one of the important things to speak about is that a constitution is not a doesn't discriminate and doesn't say that some people need to be given preferential treatment while some people, just because they belong to a minority community, should not be given preferential treatment. When it comes to marriage rights, that's how it is at this moment. There is enough evidence, enough and more evidence that LGBTQIA plus people, LGBTQIA plus families thrive as much as heterosexual families thrive. Whether it is about families with children, whether it's families, if you go in the West, of course you'll not get examples over here because here you can't really adopt a gay couple can't adopt a child. But if you go to the West, you'll see that a lot of people who have adopted, and they are as good or as bad as heterosexual couples. So the entire idea, let's not even get to adoption and other things. When we are sticking to marriage, just sticking to marriage, let me tell you that we cannot have preferential treatment given to a particular sexuality, whereas the other sexuality is completely left out. And marriage equality is our right, irrespective of what my genitals or my partner's genitals are. It's our right. And as long as two adults are deciding that they want to live together, they want to they want to have the signing authority when one of the partners is dying. They want to have the right to buy. I think you can still take a bank account together, but if you're taking a loan together, it's still a hassle. If they want to do that, it also means a lot of economic rise for India. Why would India deprive itself of this economy? Why would India deprive its citizens of these basic rights to love and to be with the one I love in legal matrimony? Is my basic right.
Priyanka Tandon,
why would India? And I'm a proud citizen of the country.
Yeah,
so
one
why
of the
would
things,
I have faith in the
all right,
constitution?
Harish. Let me ask Priyanka Tandon. One of the things that this whole debate around same-sex marriage is that irrespective of religious divide, whether in the Hindu community, the Muslim community, or in the Christian community, they are all opposed to same-sex marriage, because at the end of the day, should the right to confer marital status be left to the individuals concerned, or should it be left to, the pandit who's performing the ceremony or the priest who's consecrating a marriage? It should be left to the two individuals. So if you're willing to do that in the case of heterosexual couples, why aren't you willing to do that in the case of homosexual couples?
Well, if you ask me, the definition of love for me is not getting married to the same gender, first of all. It can't be claimed by law, by the way. And, something like, with the due to respects of the law, I would say we must also protect the law of nature and nurture. There's a process. There is a biological process which God had already made for all of the humans here. So are we actually looking for the humans and we are not looking for the future for the coming generation of our country? Because India, where we live in a country, we are very adaptable to the things. We are very adaptable to the psychological changes in our country. We are very adaptable of things are happening here. There are so many kind of marriages which happens in our country. But have you ever heard of getting a swayamvar of female choosing a female partner? Or male choosing a male partner?
No, so what the LGBTQ community is arguing is, okay, you don't want to do the swayamvar, at least allow us to go to court and have a civil contract. That much can be allowed.
As I have said, we all should respect the law of nature which God has made. God has made a individual personality of a male and a female, and we should not disturb this reproductive system which God has made.
No, but that also inherently means the only purpose of marriage or companionship is to procreate, is to have children. There are many number of couples, including heterosexual couples, who choose not to have children. So what? That's perfectly fine.
This is absolutely this. I don't agree with this. This is absolutely an individual choice. If you want to get married to a male or a female,
yes,
or you want to get married to anybody, you want to get married. Here in India, where we live, we belong to such culture where we respect every individual as a human. We are not saying that you're a criminal. We are not saying that you are doing something wrong. We are not saying that you are not a citizen of our country, but you are asking for something which I feel I don't support.
So, Paras, how do you respond to that? Basically, they're saying that till 2017-18, homosexuals were seen as criminals. Or now we're doing you a favor. We've read down the law.
We have never used this term as we are going to.
Like I said, I mean, 377 was there till it was on the statutory books. Homosexuals were considered as criminals. Now, the argument by folks like Priyanka is, okay, we are treating you as equal citizens.
Absolutely.
Paras.
So I don't know, I want to just ask Priyanka, on the spectrum, is she someone who's part of the LGBTQ community, or she recognizes or she identifies as a straight person? What is her sexuality?
I think I'm absolutely a straight person, and please don't consider my sexuality here on a national television. Thank you so much for that, right? I'm not here to tell you what is my sexuality.
That's where the problem comes in, because I think a lot of people...
I respect every individual who is sexual or bisexual.
Fair enough. One at a time, please. One at a time. Yeah, Paras, yeah.
So now I want to understand, this is where the grassroots problem comes in. Imagine someone getting so offended when you asked about what your sexuality is. So when somebody like that says that, it means she is considering that LGBTQ is a problem. Now that mindset right there is an issue. Now the reason I asked is, if Priyanka would be an LGBTQ activist or an ally, or someone who may not be part of the community but still is an ally, it'd be cool. Now the fact that she's offended, ma'am, why can't I ask you about what your sexual preference is on national television? The whole point of this debate is to have a mature conversation where you say who you choose to love is your prerogative. Now the whole funda with this is, when you talk about marriage, if you don't agree with my choices, if you're not part of the LGBTQIA, you actually have no business having a comment or an opinion on my life. So if you're not part of the community, what business do you have to decide how I live my life?
Okay. Priyanka?
I want to know that.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I believe in law of nature.
Anytime now.
I believe in a law of nature. I believe in God. I believe that God has made our individual person as a male and female, and we all should follow the process.
Do you think God did not make me bisexual? Do you think I became bisexual unnaturally or unholily or not? And be very careful with what you say, Priyanka. You are on national television.
Yeah, sure.
You think it's unnatural for me to be bisexual, and God did not make me like that? So God made me bisexual? Yes or no?
See. I absolutely respect what you're saying. I absolutely understand what you're saying. It is just that I'm not here to comment on your bisexuality. I'm not here to debate with you. That I am not against you. As I earlier said, that I respect every individual.
Okay.
But this is my personal choice that I don't support
Great. So
this
my response to
community.
that, if I may finish, my response to that is
Yeah.
Priyanka, if
There is a
people,
point.
if we had the support of people who are not from the LGBTQIA, that would be great. But you know what? If you don't approve of my lifestyle, that seems like a you problem. I am looking today at the
Yeah.
Constitution of India, because just before a couple of years ago, we were also criminalized. Maybe you were very happy about the fact that we were treated as criminals, and now you have no option but to say,
I
oh
have
wait, now
already
this is not
mentioned that
criminal.
we don't
The same
treat
way,
you as a
whatever your opinion may
criminal.
be,
We,
because I have so
I
much
don't
faith
said
in the
that.
Constitution of India, the day they turn around and say, hey now, men can marry men and women can marry women, I will make sure, I will get your details, we'll send you a marriage invitation, and you're wholly invited, wholeheartedly,
Thank
to
you.
No,
attend the
so
wedding.
I
and
want
you'll be
to
treated just
take this
as well
forward.
or as badly as anyone else.
Sure. I want to take this forward. I want to ask Harish as well as the others on the debate. Let me ask. Let me go back to Sonal Gyani. I think it comes back to what the SG was also asking today. If you grant legal status to same-sex marriages, how are you going to then change laws of adoption? How are you going to change divorce laws? How are you going to change laws of succession and inheritance in this country? And of course, for each community in this country, there is a separate succession and inheritance acts.
Yeah. So I think first of all, we should guard ourselves in presenting matters of technicalities to come in the way of giving equal rights to our citizens. That's number one. As far as technicalities are concerned, there have been multiple judgments where technicalities have to be looked into. Very recently, you've seen the Vishaka guidelines also. There is a commission that you can make sit on this. The Special Marriage Act is the most easily, I believe that it's very easy to actually tweak it to include more than two people who are married. Right now it's being interpreted incorrectly, again because of technicality, and I think it comes back to what Priyanka was speaking about, right? That the misinformation that public has around whether is this natural, is this normal, and these are things that the Supreme Court had in fact asked to address under section 377. And for an audience which may be misinformed, I just want to say that one must be very careful while using words like natural or normal. What is natural? Natural is something that exists in nature. As far as homosexuality is considered, if you look at ethics also, there are references. Other also. No, Priyanka, this is not about you. I am talking about the larger public. You can differ. We can agree to disagree as much as you like, but let's talk statistics. More than 500 species of animals are showing homosexuality. So it is natural. Second bit is normal. What is normal? What is considered normative is something that you see constantly around you and it normalizes your opinion around it. If you go to Los Angeles, everybody finds that homosexuality is completely normal. And that's the idea we are trying to change. At the end of the day, it comes back to what Paris is saying.
Okay.
As long as I am not hurting you, but if this system is hurting me, right, it's time that the institution steps up and safeguards its citizens. This is not an argument against religious bodies. This is an argument about our constitution which guarantees us safety and protection and equal rights, which is not happening. If you talk about my life, if I am with my partner, it is difficult for me to get a health insurance for my partner. Tomorrow something happens to her, I am in hospital with her, we have to take a life saving decision. I cannot make it despite living with my partner for 10 years. I want to live in a house with my partner, there are 20 people who are refusing to. And if you are talking about this whole elitist concept also, let me tell you, when it comes to grassroots, and I have been across India in small villages, smaller towns, this is the primary issue.
Okay.
The marriage pressure, especially on LGBT women, right? The marriage pressure is the main cause for people to have, mental health issues, suicides. Go back, look at the news, look at the number of lesbian suicides that have come from smaller villages, and then let's talk.
Okay. Harish, I'll give you the final word. Harish, just to take this forward, if the hearings in the Supreme Court are going to be restricted to just allowing same-sex couples to marry legally in a civil contract as per the Special Marriages Act, you still have a whole host of areas that still have to be traversed and which still have to be addressed, which is succession, divorce, inheritance, property rights, etc., etc.
Well, as the problem looks like, the only problem with gay marriage, when I hear all these arguments, I realize that the only problem with gay marriage or marriage equality is divorce. But the truth is that we will traverse that journey. when it comes to naturality, whether this is natural, the previous argument that we were having as well, Zara Jacob, one of the things Priyanka needs to understand is the fact that we have debated in section 377, and the court has ordained that we are natural, we are real, we and there is nothing more distinct than that. The only natural progression after 377 is marriage equality, and after marriage equality, of course, we will not stop at marriage equality, we'll come for other rights as well.
Okay.
Why should I be treated as a second class citizen in a country that even if I'm one person in this country, my rights are important. When even
All
as a
right.
minority, my rights are important in my country. The constitution grants me that.
Okay,
Why
Harish,
should
we'll
I be
leave it at
treated
that.
as a second
I
class citizen?
am completely out of time. I want to thank all our guests who have joined us this evening on the broadcast. Like I said, this is going to be a hearing that will go on for a number of weeks and months in the Supreme Court, and the Constitution Bench is hearing it no less. And you will have a lot of back and forth between the various stakeholders and the court itself, and we will keep an eye out right here on CNN News 18. Meanwhile, the big political story of the day, nearly 4 years after Ajit Pawar's midnight coup, there is now speculation of a possible rift in the NCP again.
जो डिप्टी चीफ मिनिस्टर रह चुका है, अगर उसको सम्मानित नहीं किया जाता है तो उसको अपमानित जब किया जाता है तो वो टाइम वो निर्णय लेने के लिए बाध्य हो जाता है.
माझ्याबद्दल किंवा माझ्या सहकाऱ्यांच्याबद्दल गैरसमज निर्माण करण्याचा काम वास्तविक या ज्या काही बातम्या चाललेल्या आहेत किंवा बातम्या दाखवण्यात येत आहेत त्या बातम्यांमध्ये काही तथ्य नाही.
Well, there's clearly something brewing in Maharashtra. For the last few days, there's been a lot of buzz over leader of the opposition Ajit Pawar joining hands with the BJP along with a bunch of NCP MLAs. Today, Ajit Pawar, though, came out and categorically denied any speculation about his move to the BJP. He said the NCP is family and the party will continue to work under the leadership of Sharad Pawar. Ajit Pawar also took pot shots at Eknath Shinde, who were predicting a second political earthquake in Maharashtra and were ready to welcome Ajit Pawar if he so decided to join the ruling government. So here's how the Pawar games have started in Maharashtra. Rumours started that Ajit Pawar was trying to become Eknath Shinde's successor as the Maharashtra Chief Minister in an alliance with the BJP. There were reports that Ajit Pawar was collecting consent signatures from lawmakers in his party. Sources claimed that 40 out of the 53 NCP MLAs had given their consent signatures. Then 2 MLAs from the Ajit Pawar camp had come out openly in support of their leader. Ultimately, Ajit Pawar broke his silence today and said that there is absolutely no truth to these rumours.
माझ्याबद्दल किंवा माझ्या सहकाऱ्यांच्याबद्दल गैरसमज निर्माण करण्याचा काम वास्तविक या ज्या काही बातम्या चाललेल्या आहेत किंवा बातम्या दाखवण्यात येत आहेत त्या बातम्यांमध्ये काही तथ्य नाही.
Can there be smoke without fire? A series of recent developments indicate that the BJP and the NCP have been trying to mend fences. Senior NCP leader and former Union Minister Praful Patel was seen sharing a dais with Devendra Fadnavis in Vidarbha. Later, Sharad Pawar and former State Home Minister Anil Deshmukh of the NCP visited Union Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari in his residence in Nagpur. Differences also emerged within the MVA after Sharad Pawar's remarks on Gautam Adani, in which he opposed the constitution of a JPC. It was followed by Ajit Pawar defending Prime Minister Modi on the degree certificate row. So is there more to it than meets the eye? After all, Ajit Pawar is a man at the heart of the 2019 midnight coup as well. This was on the 22nd of November. At around 8 p.m., NCP, Congress and Shiv Sena held a meeting. 2 hours later, Sharad Pawar announced that Uddhav Thackeray will be Chief Minister. At around 11:50 p.m., Ajit Pawar struck a deal with the BJP. By midnight, Devendra Fadnavis contacted the BJP top brass. The following morning at 5:30, Ajit Pawar and Devendra Fadnavis reached the governor's house. The then Governor Bhagat Singh Koshyari revoked President's rule in Maharashtra, and at 7:50 a.m., Fadnavis was sworn in as the Chief Minister and Ajit Pawar as his deputy. Of course, 80 hours later, Ajit Pawar resigned and returned to the NCP and was forgiven for his transgression. All right, Sanju Verma of the BJP will be joining us. Sanjay Jha, political analyst, Brijmohan Srivastava of the NCP, and Rohan Gupta of the Congress will also be joining us. Sanjay, now that Ajit Pawar has come out and said clearly, categorically and in public that there is no truth to rumours of him joining hands with the BJP, can we put this story to rest?
Aka, there is only one thing that emerges from the entire drama that we saw today. That is that despite using Operation Lotus to successfully, I would say, kind of bifurcate the Shiv Sena led by Uddhav Thackeray now into two units, I think the BJP is recognizing that probably Eknath Shinde doesn't have the kind of electoral clout or political capital to kind of give the BJP the buffer that they were expecting. So clearly they could be on the back foot. And, I live in Mumbai and I'm, pretty much part of Maharashtra. There has been a lot of rumor of late that they are going to try very hard to use all kinds of dirty tricks in their, humongous treasury bag and their investigating agencies bag to try and see if they can, try and possibly even, break the NCP. I wouldn't be surprised if that effort will continue into the clandestine midnight hours. The truth is that Maharashtra politics is extremely fluid. And I can tell you, Zaka, watch for this. Why is the BJP, or rather, why isn't the government announcing the BMC elections? Because they fear, the apprehension is that Eknath Shinde's highly diminished clout will become apparent. And that will give the Uddhav Shiv Sena the legitimate right to say that we are truly the real Shiv Sena.
Okay, so let me ask Sanju Verma this. Is this whole story getting legs from the fact that the BJP feels not so comfortable with Mr. Shinde, his electoral crowd? As Sanjay asked, why haven't you even called for the BMC elections? It's been a year plus and it's been delayed. If you were so confident about your numbers, you should go back to the people. So is this some kind of an insurance policy, Ajit Pawar?
Let's be very clear, Zaka. You are a seasoned journalist and you will understand that BJP, has seen outside support in 2014 October from the NCP's head honcho Sharad Pawar. Don't forget, in 2014, out of the 288-member Maharashtra Assembly, we were just 22 short of a full-fledged majority. We had secured about 123 seats. And the Shiv Sena then, Uddhav Thackeray Sena was at 63 and the NCP at 41. What I'm trying to say is, point number one, we had a bad experience with Ajit Pawar, and last year, I remember your colleague Anand Narasimhan did an interview with Deputy Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis, where Fadnavis to your team, to your channel is on record saying that हमने एक बार गलती की है, बार-बार वही गलती नहीं दोहराएंगे. We are not going to repeat the same mistake. And the reason I gave you the example of Sharad Pawar extending support in 2014 to the BJP is simply to endorse my case that indeed the BJP has to look at a probable alliance which is not currently in the realm of thinking.
Okay.
Why would it try and ally with Ajit Pawar? Why not with the NCP boss and Sharad Pawar? Because let's be very clear. I mean, it is not lost on anyone that the tallest leader in NCP is Sharad Pawar.
Okay.
And, I think this entire drama, I'll just finish by saying one thing. This entire drama about Eknath Shinde's successor being Ajit Pawar, the BJP scared. Excuse me, 40 out of 55 MLAs of Uddhav Thackeray joined Eknath Shinde, which means 73%. 14 out of Shiv Sena, as in Uddhav Thackeray Sena's 19 MPs, left him and joined, the BJP Shinde alliance, which means again 74% of his MPs. Well,
okay.
73 to 74% of MLAs and MPs of Uddhav Thackeray faction have deserted him.
No.
You should be worried about him, not
fair,
about the
fair
BJP.
enough. The stability of the government is fair enough. There's no two ways about it. But ultimately, in a year, you have not just the Lok Sabha elections, you also have the assembly elections, and the electability of these people is a question mark. But let me ask Mr. Srivastav of the NCP. Mr. Brijmohan Srivastav, today Mr. Ajit Pawar came out and categorically said that, there's no truth to the rumors of him, leaving the NCP and going elsewhere. He said similar things before 22nd of November 2019 also, where no one expected in this midnight coup that he would go and join hands with Devendra Fadnavis and that government would be sworn in the wee hours of the morning and it would last just 3 days. Fact of the matter is that what Mr. Pawar says and what he does have not necessarily matched, at least not in the past.
Rakasa, I have not seen his statement in 2019 regarding this total matter. Simply, he was gone with the Devendra Fadnavis ji, and he has taken oath. He has not issued any statement whether I am going or whether I am not going. But this time, he declared very very strongly that it is total, all are the rumors, and it is not a reality.
So where
And
is
he
this?
is
Where is
remaining.
this coming from? As I asked Sanju Verma, is it that the Mr.
No.
Ajit Pawar is BJP's plan B?
मैं बताऊं राका जी,
जी,
देखिए बात क्या है कि अभी बीजेपी के खिलाफ इस मुल्क में एक बड़ी अजीब सी वातावरण बना है। एक बना है भारतीय जनता पार्टी के वरिष्ठ नेता और पूर्व गवर्नर आदरणीय सत्यपाल मलिक जी के स्टेटमेंट से, जिसमें उन्होंने बहुत स्पष्ट लिखा है कि पुलवामा के मामले में आदरणीय देश के प्रधानमंत्री और आदरणीय गृह मंत्री जी की भूमिका थी, वो इसके लिए जिम्मेदार थे।
उसका और इसका क्या लेना देना है जी? नहीं, उसका और इसका कोई लेना देना नहीं है। कल को कोई और आके नहीं, एक सेकंड सुनिए, बात सुनिए। कल को कोई और आके बोल सकता है कि अतीक अहमद को इसलिए मारा गया ताकि अटेंशन डाइवर्ट हो जाए। ऐसे ऐसे तो किसी भी चीज के साथ आप कनेक्शन करा सकते हैं। नहीं, ये तो
बीजेपी लगातार ये नैरेटिव पैदा करती है।
ये तो बताइए ना कि why are people not saying कि शिंदे छोड़ के चले जाएगा? वो भी नैरेटिव बना सकते हैं। नैरेटिव बनाने के लिए आप जो कुछ भी बोल सकते हैं ना, उसमें क्या है?
14 करोड़ रुपए खर्च करके महाराष्ट्र सरकार ने
Rohan has been waiting patiently. Rohan first and then Sanju Verma. Rohan, the fact of the matter is that while there may not be legs to the story, Ajit Pawar has now come out and clarified that he's not going anywhere. Mr. Sharad Pawar has been striking a slightly differing tone from the rest of the opposition, whether it's on JPC on Adani, whether it is on the PM educational degree row that some opposition parties had made a big issue. So Rohan Gupta, what I'm asking is Mr. Pawar on the one hand wanting to shape national unity amongst opposition parties, but at the same time also wanting to sort of strike a discordant note?
No.
Rohan, thank you.
Yeah, every party has its own ideology, its own thoughts. So when you are in alliance, there is something called common minimum program. You need not necessarily agree with all the viewpoint or ideology of your partners. At the same time, you work together because you work towards a larger goal, that is to save democracy. Zaka, let me tell you, after the Kasba by-election results in Maharashtra, BJP is badly shattered. They had put their money on Mr. Shinde, and now they realize that ground reality is completely different. They have deferred the BMC elections. They are scared of facing elections in future. So obviously they are trying all their sorts, A, B, C, D, whatever sources through their agencies, election department, anything they will try. They will go to any extent to save their power. And I think they are trying to break MVA. This is not the first time BJP is trying through whatever sources they can. But MVA will be intact. As Mr. Pawar has already told that we are going to be part of this alliance. Mr. Sharad Pawar also told, he told that, okay, I personally don't agree with the JPC, but for the sake of MVA's unity, I am okay with the demand. So, yeah, there are issues which we contradict. But at the end of the day, we know that situation in Maharashtra is completely changing. BJP is scared of it.
Okay, so Sanju Verma respond, Rohan saying that, the Kasba bypoll was a wake-up call for the BJP, that the reality on the ground is that the current government, and particularly under Mr. Shinde's leadership, there doesn't seem to be confidence to be able to win back these seats. Kasba, I think, is a seat that you hadn't lost in like 20 or 25 years.
Okay, now let me just say one thing very clearly. If there is any party that needs a wake-up call, it has been in deep slumber since 2014. It is the Congress, which also does not have officially the leader of opposition status. And as for the NCP, let me tell you that barely a week to 10 days back, they lost their status as a national party. And I found very surprising this fact that Rohan Gupta was quick to talk about the BJP's Kasba by-election defeat. So my friend, why don't you also talk about the handsome victory that BJP's Ashwini Jagtap won in Chinchwad? Chinchwad was always considered a Congress NCP bastion, and we went and had a handsome victory in your bastion. So if you talk about Kasba, you must also talk about your stirring loss in Chinchwad. Now, point number 3 and the most important one. I think any election is as good or bad as the people who lead from the front and the karyakartas who make up the backbone of the organization. And Zaka, it is not lost on anyone that in Maharashtra today, the Congress's Prithviraj Chavan is fighting with Ashok Chavan. Milind Deora versus everyone. Nana Patole is fighting with Bhai Jagtap. Nana Patole is fighting with Ajit Pawar. Ajit Pawar is fighting with Supriya Sule. In fact, I just want to tell a very important statement made by Supriya Sule when she was asked about her views on Ajit Pawar likely going to the BJP and leaving the NCP. She said, as far as I know, currently it is sunny, the weather is fine, but if it is going to rain in the next 15 minutes, I cannot predict that, which means that the NCP does not know what its second in command, Ajit Pawar, is likely to do.
Okay, so let me ask, all right, let me ask Sanjay, let me ask Sanjay Jha, let me ask Sanjay Jha, this whole idea that, just because the three opposition parties come together, they'll be able to defeat BJP and Shinde. In UP, for example, in the Lok Sabha election of 2019, SP and BSP came together and they were a formidable political force. And then yet the BJP won 61 out of 80 seats. So the point is, elections have changed in a way that you can't just say that, party A and party B come together, their arithmetic is bigger than party C. It's changed.
No, Zaka, there's a difference here because I think the MVA ran the government. And, even the most bitter critics of Uddhav Thackeray cannot deny giving him the credit. I live here in Mumbai and we saw some of the most, brutal numbers in terms of the COVID. But the way
under Uddhav Thackeray, you should be ashamed.
One at a time, please. One at a time. So only Sanjay. Only Sanjay on screen. Thank you.
Thanks, Zaka. So end of day, the way Uddhav really led the government to combat COVID was exceptional, extraordinary in my opinion. And I'll make a point here. The Supreme Court's judgment is yet to come on the disqualification cases. Now, there is a side that argues that maybe only 16 MLAs will be, if at all they get disqualified, it won't destabilize the government. But there is a larger perception battle that the government of Mr. Shinde will not be able to escape. And I think they're very worried because you have an independent Supreme Court and the judgment is awaited.
All right.
Point number three, Maharashtra after Uttar Pradesh remains the most critical Lok Sabha actual bastion with 48 seats. So the BJP is in a bit of a panic mode because this entire Eknath Shinde gambit that they played may just end up boomeranging on them.
Okay, so Brijmohan Srivastava, one of the points that Sanju Verma made was today when Supriya Sule was asked about Ajit Pawar moving to the BJP, she said, I can't predict what's going to happen 15 minutes from now.
No,
I mean,
no,
that is de facto your second most important leader in the party.
Yes. Can you repeat? Can you show her statement? She has not spoken this thing. She told that I doesn't believe on the gossip and better to ask Dada. Better ask to Dada. It's a right statement. She doesn't believe in the gossip, and when she's saying ask to Dada, as Dada was saying that I'm not leaving NCP, I'm not going away from the NCP. So when he's
is there in every major newspaper and online portal.
Sanju Bahan, can you show her statement?
Debate पर पढ़ लिख कर आया कीजिए. Debate पर पढ़ लिख कर आया कीजिए. Supriya Sule has given a statement. I challenge you to tell me Supriya Sule has not given that statement.
आप बहन सुन के आया करिए.
बिना अखबार पढ़े बैठ जाते हैं. Supriya Sule has said, I do not know what will happen in the next 15 minutes, whether it will rain, but currently the weather is sunny and fine. This is her statement when she was asked whether Ajit Pawar will join hands with Shinde and Fadnavis. This is her exact statement. I'm quoting it ad verbatim.
Okay. Sanjay ji, you made your point. Mr. Srivastava, close out the debate. 30 seconds. बोलिए.
जी बात गलत नहीं, आप पूरी बात नहीं होने देते. आपने मेरी वॉल्यूम को कम किया. It's not wrong.
नहीं, आप बताइए ना. अभी वॉल्यूम नहीं कम कर रहा हूँ. आप बताइए. क्लोजिंग कमेंट दीजिए.
जब आप बात नहीं सुनना चाहते तो
बोलिए ना सर. सुन रहे हैं. देश सुन रहा है. बोलिए.
संजू बहन झूठ बोल रही है. संजू बहन बदतमीजी से बात कर रही है. उसका आप जवाब नहीं देने दे रहे हैं. उनको अकल का ठेका उनके पास.
तो सुन रहा हूं ना. बोलिए आपको जो बोलना है.
जब बोलना चाहिए उस समय आप रोक देते हैं. आप वॉल्यूम डाउन कर देते हैं.
अरे सर, अभी तो मैं 30 सेकंड से आपसे बोल रहा हूं कि बोलिए. आपका जो पक्ष है वो रखिए.
सारी बातें गलत बोल रही हैं. सुप्रिया सुले जी को गलत ढंग से कोट कर रही हैं. ना उन्होंने सुना है, ना उन्होंने पढ़ा है. जो उनके दिमाग में आता है वो सोचती वही सच है. ऐसा कैसे हो सकता है?
Okay. All right. We'll leave it at that. I'm going to wrap up. Thank you very much to all our guests. Like I said, the story is politically speculative in nature, and I don't think that speculation is going to die down anytime soon, despite the fact that Mr. Ajit Pawar has clarified and said that he's not going anywhere, and all of this stuff about him joining hands with the BJP is stuff that's being speculative in nature. Let's try and move on to the other big story, and this is again coming from Mumbai, because Apple, the world's largest smartphone maker, has officially opened its first store in India at the Bandra Kurla complex in Mumbai. Apple CEO Tim Cook threw open the doors of the 28,000 square feet flagship store to long queues of Apple enthusiasts. A second store will be opening in Delhi on Thursday. What is clear is the importance of the Indian market to the iPhone maker's future. Apple is looking at boosting sales and manufacturing of iPhones here in India. The tech giant currently has about a 4% in India's massive smartphone market, which is dominated by South Korean and Chinese phone manufacturers. News 18's Devashish Sarkar checked out the Apple BKC store, which runs on 100% renewable energy.
So we have entered the Apple store over here, the first Apple store in India, Apple BKC at the Bandra Kurla complex, the Geo World Drive Mall. This is the main entrance. I've just entered the store, and the first thing I'm going to see is the iPhone area. You'll be greeted with the latest iPhone 14 range, the iPhone 14, the iPhone 14 Pro series. This device is straight, and this is slanted because according to the store lighting, they want the customer to get the best experience of the device. So basically, at this device, the angle, the tilt is basically adjusted as per the store lighting, so that when you walk in straight, you get the best experience. As you can see over here, of this side of the store, this is slightly slanted like this, simply because again, you won't see any reflection of the lights above on the phone. I mean, that is like paying attention to the design. And like I mentioned previously as well, the table, anybody, a little kid, somebody taller, somebody on wheelchair, everybody can access this table, look at the place. And you know what, another interesting thing is the audio. Look at the crowd, look at the maddening rush that is out there, but still, you will be able to talk to each other pretty easily, and you'll be able to converse with the Apple Store executives as well, because there is some amount of sound absorption happening as well. What's the USP of this store? Many of you are saying that, why will I go to this Apple Store at BKC? There are so many Apple resellers out there in the country. Why go to an Apple BKC or the Apple Socket that is opening up in Delhi on the April 20th? Well, the answer is simple. The store gives the real Apple experience.
Meanwhile, Devashish also spoke with Apple CEO Tim Cook about his India expansion plans.
Welcome to India, welcome to Mumbai. How are you feeling?
It's wonderful to be here. It's so great to be in India. We've looked forward to this week for a long time.
Great. It feels so lovely to meet you in person. And today I want to talk about the Apple Watch.
Yes.
How has Apple been able to create such a health and fitness device that can reach so many people in a meaningful way, be it professional athletes or somebody like me who just wants to stay fit?
It started with focusing on wellness and creating the three rings, the move, stand, and your exercise burn. And it went from there to heart rate and detecting AFib. And of course, notifications came early on as well. And so it has just expanded to cover the waterfront of people's needs.
Right.
And it's so great for me to come here and hear how it's used in actual training. But I get notes every day from people who found out they had AFib.
Right.
And they've told me that their doctors told them they would have died if they had not found out about it and reached out to a doctor for help. And so we just keep pulling the string to see where it takes us. One of the athletes here today told me that they use the sleep function a lot.
Right.
And all of them use the heart rate function to see which heart rate zone they're operating in.
Right.
And so there's just a enormous amount of functionality in this little thing that you put on your wrist now.
Right.
It's fantastic.
And finally, Tim Cook's jaw dropped when one Apple fan presented him with something very nostalgic, a vintage 1984 Macintosh. Leave you with this.
देखिए किस तरह से बालू माफिया, दारू माफिया, जमीन माफिया बिहार को गुंडा राज में तब्दील कर रहा है। किसके बल पर कर रहा है? क्योंकि सत्ता में अपराधियों और भ्रष्टाचारियों की जमात बैठी है और उसको लगता है कि मेरा आका मुझको संरक्षण करेगा।
We are on ground zero on Koilwar Bridge in Bihta, and yesterday an incident took place which shook the country, where the people from Parev village as well as sand mafias, truck drivers, they brutally attacked the mining officers who went there to check overloading of the sand. Now the villagers as well as the truck drivers, they brutally thrashed and dragged the woman officer Amya Kumari as well as Syed Farheen when they were checking the overloading. They were critically injured, shifted to hospital, but fortunately their life is saved and they are back home. But the big question here is who is actually controlling this whole ground, because certainly the land mafias, the sand mafias are violating law and order situation in Bihar. Now in this particular case, 3 FIRs have been registered in which 44 persons are arrested. More raids are going on by the police officials, and the question still remains, the BJP is questioning the Nitish government that who actually is running this state. If not, this is Jungle Raj. And then they also ask that actually the land mafias, the sand mafias as well as the liquor mafias are running the state. So the Nitish Kumar should resign as the CM of the state because he is not able to control the law and order situation of Bihar.
A team of 3 mining officials, including a woman official, were brutally thrashed by sand mafia in Bihar, and this is in the Bihta block of Patna district. Now, this incident took place when the team had gone for inspection as part of the drive to check illegal mining in the Bihta area. The culprits started throwing stones at all of these officials when they reached near the Koilwar bridge. They also hurled abuses and assaulted the woman inspector, Amya Kumari, and she also sustained injuries. The other 2 officials, Kumar Gaurav and Syed Farheen, were beaten up as well. Following the incident, the police arrested 44 people as accused and seized 50 vehicles on the basis of an FIR that was registered. Now, the mastermind behind this incident is yet to be nabbed, and further probe is currently underway. However, this is a shocking state of affairs that talks about how the sand mafia is very much functional and going on to get on to these violent exercises in the state of Bihar.
परेड जो बीटा में पड़ता है वहाँ पे DTO साहब, डिस्ट्रिक्ट माइनिंग ऑफिसर, डिस्ट्रिक्ट जो माइनिंग इंस्पेक्टर है और लोकल पुलिस के द्वारा जो भी गाड़ी ओवरलोडिंग थी उस एक संयुक्त अभियान चलाया जा रहा था और उसमें जो भी ओवरलोडेड गाड़ी थी उसे पकड़ा जा रहा था और पकड़ करके जहाँ पे प्लेस है वहाँ पे रखने की व्यवस्था की जा रही है। इसी क्रम में जो है कुछ असामाजिक तत्व भीड़ बना करके जो भी ये लोग थे इनके खिलाफ जो है रोड़ेबाजी और जो है रड से और डंडे से जो प्रहार किया गया और जो है हिंसा की गई, जिस संबंध में बीटा में प्राथमिकी अंकित की जा रही है। अभी तक जो है कुल 44 लोगों को गिरफ्तार किया।
बिहार में जब हम गुंडा राज कहते हैं तो लोगों को बेचैनी लगता है। जो अभी ये बेटा का आया है सोशल मीडिया पर जो चल रहा है, इससे बड़ा गुंडा राज क्या होगा? सैया भेल कोतवाल, अब डर काहे का? आज खनन विभाग के अंदर खनन पदाधिकारी को, खनन निरीक्षक को जिस तरह से उस महिला पदाधिकारी को पीटा जा रहा है, धिक्कार है सत्ता में बैठे लोगों को। मुख्यमंत्री और उप मुख्यमंत्री जी जरा देखिए किस तरह से बालू माफिया, दारू माफिया, जमीन माफिया बिहार को गुंडा राज में तब्दील कर रहा है। किसके बल पर कर रहा है? क्योंकि सत्ता में अपराधियों और भ्रष्टाचारियों की जमात बैठी है और उसको लगता है कि मेरा आका मुझको संरक्षण करेगा।
We are on ground zero on Koilwar Bridge in Bihta, and yesterday an incident took place which shook the country, where the people from Parev village as well as sand mafias, truck drivers, they brutally attacked the mining officers who went there to check overloading of the sand. Now, the villagers as well as the truck drivers, they brutally thrashed and dragged the woman officer Amya Kumari as well as Syed Farheen when they were checking the overloading. They were critically injured, shifted to hospital, but fortunately their life is saved and they are back home. But the big question here is who is actually controlling this whole ground, because certainly the land mafias, the sand mafias are violating law and order situation in Bihar. Now in this particular case, 3 FIRs have been registered in which 44 persons are arrested. More raids are going on by the police officials, and the question still remains. The BJP is questioning the Nitish government that who actually is running this state. If not, this is Jungle Raj. And then they also ask that actually the land mafias, the sand mafias, as well as the liquor mafias are running the state. So the Nitish Kumar should resign as the CM of the state because he is not able to control the law and order situation of Bihar.
A team of 3 mining officials, including a woman official, were brutally thrashed by sand mafia in Bihar, and this is in the Bihta block of Patna district. Now, this incident took place when the team had gone for inspection as part of the drive to check illegal mining in the Bihta area. The culprits started throwing stones at all of these officials when they reached near the Koilwar bridge. They also hurled abuses and assaulted the woman inspector, Amya Kumari, and she also sustained injuries. The other 2 officials, Kumar Gaurav and Syed Farheen, were beaten up as well. Following the incident, the police arrested 44 people as accused and seized 50 vehicles on the basis of an FIR that was registered. Now, the mastermind behind this incident is yet to be nabbed, and further probe is currently underway. However, this is a shocking state of affairs that talks about how the sand mafia is very much functional and going on to get on to these violent exercises in the state of Bihar.
और एक जो बीटा में पड़ता है वहाँ पे DTO साहब डिस्ट्रिक्ट माइनिंग ऑफिसर डिस्ट्रिक्ट जो माइनिंग इंस्पेक्टर है और लोकल पुलिस के द्वारा जो भी गाड़ी ओवरलोडिंग थी उस एक संयुक्त अभियान चलाया जा रहा था और उसमें जो भी ओवरलोडेड गाड़ी थी उसे पकड़ा जा रहा था और पकड़ करके जहाँ पे एक प्लेस है वहाँ पे रखने की व्यवस्था की जा रही है। इसी क्रम में जो है कुछ असामाजिक तत्व भीड़ बना करके जो भी ये लोग थे इनके खिलाफ जो है रोड़ेबाजी और जो है रड से और डंडे से जो प्रहार किया गया और जो है हिंसा की गई, जिस संबंध में बीटा में प्राथमिकी अंकित की जा रही है। अभी तक जो है कुल 44 लोगों को गिरफ्तार किया।
बिहार में जब हम गुंडा राज कहते हैं तो लोगों को बेचैनी लगता है। जो अभी ये बेटा का आया है सोशल मीडिया पर जो चल रहा है, इससे बड़ा गुंडा राज क्या होगा। सैया भेल कोतवाल, अब डर काहे का। आज खनन विभाग के अंदर खनन पदाधिकारी को, खनन निरीक्षक को जिस तरह से उस महिला पदाधिकारी को पीटा जा रहा है, धिक्कार है सत्ता में बैठे लोगों को। मुख्यमंत्री और उप मुख्यमंत्री जी जरा देखिए किस तरह से बालू माफिया, दारू माफिया, जमीन माफिया बिहार को गुंडा राज में तब्दील कर रहा है। किसके बल पर कर रहा है? क्योंकि सत्ता में अपराधियों और भ्रष्टाचारियों की जमात बैठी है और उसको लगता है कि मेरा आका मुझको संरक्षण करेगा।
We are on ground zero on Koilwar bridge in Bihta, and yesterday an incident took place which shook the country, where the people from Plea village as well as sand mafias, truck drivers, they brutally attacked the mining officers who went there to check overloading.
Hello, Namaskar. This is First Post and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. Tonight we have news about a Chinese police station in New York. It's part of a spy operation. It's been busted, but it's just the tip of the iceberg. China runs illegal police stations across the world to police Chinese citizens outside its borders. It forces dissidents to return home and suffer. How is this being allowed? Do such Chinese police stations also exist in India? We'll tell you about it tonight. Also, Khalistanis are giving their host countries a taste of their terrorist and criminal activities. 17 people have been arrested in California, complete with AK-47s and machine guns. Will the West call them activists now? Xi Jinping wants to broker peace between Israel and Palestine. What's with the Chinese president and peace deals? Russia and Bangladesh will trade in the Chinese yuan. The story of the marginalization of the US dollar continues, and British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak wants students to learn maths. He's pitching it as a solution to his country's economic woes. But we have another question. Why are students all over the world anxious when it comes to mathematics? We'll discuss the headlines first. Sudan's paramilitary group, the Rapid Support Force, agrees to a 24-hour truce. This is to evacuate the injured and civilians who are trapped, but violence continues. Explosions rock the capital, Khartoum. Clashes between the army and paramilitary forces have killed around 200 people in the country. Putin makes a rare visit to Ukraine's frontline regions. The Russian president visits Kherson and Luhansk. Russia annexed these regions in September last year. Last month, Putin visited the Russian-held port city of Mariupol. A Russian court rejects the appeal of detained US journalist Ivan Gershkovich. He was arrested last month and charged with espionage. He could face a 20-year prison sentence. The European Union chief urges the bloc to show unity against China. Ursula von der Leyen warns against falling prey to what she calls divide and conquer tactics. This comes after the French president triggered a debate over ties with Beijing. The FBI has arrested a US soldier who applied to be a hitman. A Tennessee Air National Guardsman was held after he responded to an online ad for a hitman, but the job was fake. The ad was on a parody website that the Guardsman thought was real. And the Lahore High Court bars the Punjab police from quote-unquote harassing Imran Khan. The former Prime Minister had sought protection from arrest and police operation at his Zaman Park residence. Our lead story tonight is more bizarre than a Hollywood plot. The US has been infiltrated. Do you know by whom? The Chinese police. I know it sounds impossible, but it has happened. A major Chinese operation has been busted in New York. Beijing has set up secret police stations in the city of New York. These stations were used to threaten and hunt critics, also harass Chinese dissidents.
The MPS has repeatedly and flagrantly violated our nation's sovereignty, including by opening and operating a police station in the middle of New York City.
As dramatic as this is, it's not a first. America is not the first victim of such an operation. China has been setting up police stations around the world. This is a growing threat, a threat that the world needs to prepare for. So what are these Chinese police stations? And how do they operate on overseas soil? In which countries have they sprung up? We'll cover all of this tonight, starting with what we know about the Chinese operation in New York. It was discovered in Manhattan's Chinatown. This is a neighborhood in New York. America's main domestic security agency, the FBI, was investigating this outpost. Reports say the police station was set up in February 2022. It was operating in disguise. China says these outposts are basically service centers, and they provide basic services to Chinese expats. You know, simple things like renewing a driving license. But in reality, these outposts operate like a police station. Two people were running the Chinese police station in New York. Their names are Liu Jiangwang and Chen Jingping. Both live in New York. Both are believed to be Chinese agents. American authorities have arrested them. They face two charges: conspiring to act as agent of the Chinese government and obstruction of justice. These are the two charges against them. The second charge, obstruction of justice, proves the Chinese link. Apparently, both men have made an admission. They've confessed to deleting evidence. And what kind of evidence was this? This was secret correspondence. It was exchanged between the Chinese spies and their handler. Now, who was their handler? An official from China's Ministry of Public Security. That's the principal police authority in China. And this handler was giving directions to Chinese spies in New York, and those directions, those communications have now been deleted. That's because they found out that they were under investigation. They got some indications last year, so they tried to clean up their act. They deleted the communications, and by the end of 2022, they also closed the police station. But US authorities were hot on their heels. They managed to nab the Chinese spies. They also searched the police station and found some crucial evidence. Turns out these spies were involved in all kinds of illegal activities, from harassing Chinese dissidents to threatening Chinese fugitives and forcing them to return to China. They did all of it. In one of the cases, these spies were enlisted to locate a pro-democracy activist. So clearly, this was a spying operation, and now it has been busted.
The secret police station appears to have had a more sinister use. On at least one occasion, an official with the Chinese National Police directed one of the defendants, a U.S. citizen who worked at the secret police station, to help locate a pro-democracy activist of Chinese descent living in California. In other words, the Chinese National Police appear to have been using the station to track a U.S. resident on U.S. soil.
So that's the story of the Chinese police station in New York. But like I said, this is not limited to New York. Such stations are everywhere. Do you know how many? More than 100, according to reports. China has over 100 police stations operating illegally in 53 countries, and they all serve the same purpose. They're on the hunt for Chinese dissidents. Can you imagine the scale of this operation? China is running a police station in practically every corner of the world and getting away with it.
It is a long overdue law enforcement action to push back against China's transnational repression that have been taking place in the homeland here in the United States and as well as in Europe. The law enforcement, policymakers, governments in various capitals have been somewhat reluctant to take action on issues like this.
I have some data from April 2021 to July 2022, more than 230 Chinese nationals returned to China. They were charged in criminal cases and they returned home. China said these nationals have returned voluntarily, but experts believe the secret police stations played a role here. They allegedly forced these Chinese nationals to return home. What about India? Do such stations, Chinese police stations, exist in India? Thankfully, India is not on the list. So far, there is no evidence to suggest that China has a police station operational in India. But this is a growing threat, and the world is acknowledging it. As of December last year, 13 countries had begun a probe into such centers. It's a start, but it's not going to be enough, because these are all individual efforts. What we need is a united response, because this is an unprecedented challenge. China wants to police its nationals beyond its borders. And this has huge national security implications for other countries. China is violating the sovereignty of nations again. The evidence is mounting. What we need now is for world leaders to act. But sometimes, even a mountain of evidence is not enough for leaders to act. Sometimes their politics gets in the way. A classic example is the Western attitude to the Khalistan movement. They've ignored the evidence. They've ignored India's complaints, and they've hosted these separatist elements for years. But now, the strategy is backfiring. Those same elements are making Western societies unsafe. Case in point, California. It is home to a sizable Sikh community, and most of them, I must say, are vibrant and productive members of the society. But recently, there have been problems. It started off with brawls and sword fights in 2018. In the last 9 months, they escalated to guns. 2 separate shootings were reported in gurdwaras in California, first in August, when 11 people were shot, August 2022. The second was last month, when 2 people were shot in Sacramento. After these incidents, California police launched a major operation. They called it Broken Sword. They raided 20 locations. They arrested 17 men and seized 41 illegal arms. 41 illegal arms. At least 1 machine gun was also found and an AK-47. Reports say 4 of these suspects hold Indian passports. The rest are born and brought up in the United States. California's Attorney General proudly announced that 41 illegal guns are now off the streets. Listen to this.
This operation is a result of that unifying goal, as mentioned by our district attorney. 17 members arrested from 2 criminal syndicates, 41 guns that were on our streets that are no longer on our streets and are out of the hands of dangerous individuals.
The good news is a crackdown is underway. The bad news is it's happening too late. The shooting in August had been linked to Sikhs for Justice. It's a Khalistani organization based in the US. It is banned in India, but it's thriving in the West. In fact, California has seen multiple incidents involving Khalistani elements. In 2018, a Sikh body leader was attacked twice. In 2022, there was a shootout at a Gurdwara in Stockton. Last month, the Indian consulate in San Francisco was attacked. So clearly, this was a growing problem. Yet the police operation was launched only after 2 mass shootings, only when the wider community was being affected. And this sums up the Western attitude to Khalistan. They've allowed separatists and criminals to masquerade as activists, as ordinary members of the community. Take this police operation in California, for example. 2 of the arrested men are wanted here in India, and that too for multiple murders. These are the sort of people living freely in the West. They get donations from ignorant businessmen. They get official support from unassuming lawmakers. And suddenly, a movement with virtually no support in India begins to thrive abroad. So this crackdown by California should be a template for other countries. Do not ignore the Khalistani problem, because today they're focused on troubling India, but tomorrow you could also be the victim. And this applies to all countries harboring elements like the Khalistan movement. Because remember, there is no such thing as a good separatist. G7 foreign ministers are meeting in Japan as we speak. And they're making dramatic statements. They're issuing threats. They say Russia will be slapped with more sanctions and countries that help Russia will face consequences. But it all sounds hollow when you look at how Russia is faring. It has found ways to bypass sanctions. Russia has proved that it doesn't need the West to trade. Let me tell you about Moscow's latest win. This came in Bangladesh. Dhaka wants to do business with Moscow, and they're ready to pay Moscow in the Chinese yuan. So Bangladesh will make payments to Russia in the Chinese currency. They bypass the dollar. And we're talking about a major payment here, worth some $300 million. It will be denominated in the yuan. Do you know what this payment is for? A nuclear power plant. Russia is building a power plant for Bangladesh. It is located near the capital city of Dhaka. The project is worth around $12 billion. It is being financed through a Russian loan. And Bangladesh has 28 years to repay this loan. Right now, it is returning a part of the loan. That's $300 million. Dhaka was supposed to make the payment earlier, but Western sanctions delayed it. You see, Russia has been cut off from the global banking system. So they started looking for alternatives. First, Russia wanted the payment in rubles. It was hesitant to accept the yuan. It feared losses after currency conversion. But Dhaka refused to accept this arrangement, so there was a deadlock. It lasted for over a year. Now it seems Russia has changed its mind. It is ready to accept the Chinese yuan, and Bangladesh is happy to pay in the yuan. But why does Bangladesh prefer the yuan? For multiple reasons. For starters, yuan is one of the official currencies of Bangladesh. Since 2017, Dhaka has been adding the yuan to its currency reserves. But when compared with the dollar, the share of the yuan is minor. In 2017, just 1% of Bangladesh's reserves were in yuan. In August last year, this went up to 1.32%. What about the US dollar? Its share has declined over time. In 2017, 81% of Bangladesh's reserves were in the greenback, 81%. In 2022, this went down to 75%. So while the shift is minor, it is still significant. Dhaka has started to like the yuan. In September last year, the Bangladesh Bank issued orders. This is the Central Bank of Bangladesh. It issued instructions for all commercial banks in the country. It said they could maintain accounts in the yuan, also settle cross-border transactions in the Chinese currency. Last month, Dhaka made another move. The focus this time was on the exporters. They were allowed to hold some of their proceeds in the yuan. This is de-dollarization in action. Bangladesh is just the latest case study. In recent months, many countries have dumped the dollar. In the month of March, for instance, Brazil abandoned the greenback. China and Brazil are using their national currencies to trade now. Recently, Brazil's president, Lula da Silva, gave a speech. He openly criticized the hegemony of the US currency. Now, Lula wants the BRICS to come up with its own currency. BRICS, as you would know, is a grouping of leading emerging economies: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. These are the members. And Russia, too, is pushing the BRICS. It wants the group to challenge the US dollar. Now, Bangladesh's move may give this push a new momentum. It only confirms what the world already knows, that Russia is not a pariah state. It has a place in the global economy, and it remains an important player. The West may not want to do business with Russia, but there are other countries who do. And they're coming up with alternative ways to settle trade deals. India, too, is in this mix. India wants to deepen trade ties with Russia. The Russian trade minister was in Delhi yesterday, and he said Moscow and New Delhi are discussing a trade deal, a free trade agreement. It could be in the works. India is a key buyer of Russian oil. It also buys key defense supplies from Russia. And this is likely to continue. Then what is the need for a trade deal now? Well, Russia is interested in buying several Indian goods. Reports say their wish list includes more than 500 products from India. So a Russia-India trade deal will make these purchases easier. It will also accelerate the pivot away from the US dollar. Xi Jinping has been called many things: Red Emperor, authoritarian, communist dictator, Winnie the Pooh. The list goes on, but none of those names befit a statesman. So what does Xi do? He tries to rebrand himself as the wise and benevolent peacemaker, the elder statesman, fighting for world peace. It's been a gradual process. Until last year, we were talking about China's wolf warrior diplomacy. Now you have peace plans coming out every month. February, there was a peace proposal for Ukraine, ambitious and hence rejected. In March, there was a peace deal for Saudi Arabia and Iran, and this time she had luck. Many called it China's arrival in West Asia. So naturally, it's time for the April peace plan. But this time, Xi Jinping is eyeing the improbable. He wants to broker peace between Israel and Palestine. Quick background here. On Monday, Xi's foreign minister dialed his counterparts in Israel and Palestine. His message to both leaders was largely the same. The recent violence is concerning, restraint is the need of the hour, and both sides must work towards a two-state solution. The Chinese statement actually makes for interesting reading. Beijing says it has, quote-unquote, no selfish interest in the region, which is true if you exclude the $19 billion China has invested in Israel. There is no selfish interest. But we'll get to that later. First, let me tell you how the Israeli foreign minister responded. He said Israel is committed to cooling the situation. He also said that a resolution will take time and will not be reached in a short term. So a lukewarm response at best. Now, what exactly explains China's sudden confidence, though? After all, this is not a new conflict. For decades, the US has tried to strike peace between Israel and Palestine. If the Americans failed and the United Nations failed, can she succeed? Most of China's influence in West Asia is linked to one thing, and that is money. Like I said, China has pumped in $19 billion into Israeli companies. They also operate 3 out of Israel's 4 major ports. Bilateral trade, nearly $22 billion. In fact, China is one of the biggest sources of Israeli imports. That sort of money does give leverage. Plus, China comes with some important goodwill. They have excellent ties with Israel's biggest rivals, Saudi Arabia and Iran. But having said all of this, money is not the biggest factor for Israel. Security is. This is a country whose existence is denied by most neighbors. It needs robust military assistance for security. Enter the United States. Israel is the largest recipient of US military aid, some $150 billion every year, $150 billion per year. You may have heard about Israel's magical Iron Dome defense system. Well, that is actually replenished by the US. So there will be pressure on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to reject Chinese mediation. And it won't be a first. We've seen examples of this in the past. In 2020, Israel rejected a Chinese bid to build a desalination plant. Why? Because pressure from Washington. Same year, they cancelled a radar deal with China. Last year, in 2022, China lost a light rail project in Tel Aviv. So the bottom line is this: China's relations with Israel have certainly grown over the years, whether it's trade, investments, or tech transfers. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu himself presided over this growing relationship. In fact, they're now negotiating a free trade agreement. But there is one thing Xi Jinping cannot guarantee, and that is an endless war chest. As for Palestine, their options are limited. The world is dangerously close to forgetting their movement, so the attention from China will certainly be welcome. But will it be fruitful? At the moment, it looks highly unlikely. With Iran and Saudi Arabia, the chips aligned perfectly for Beijing, plus the resolution was between equals. But that's not the case in Ukraine, and that's not the case in Israel. Both Russia and Israel are powerful countries with powerful armies. So getting them to concede is not easy. As for the United States, it's time to introspect for them. Their foothold in West Asia is now firmly linked to defense only. There is little goodwill, little financial dependence, and of course, the oil factor is gone. This military dynamic applies to all US allies in West Asia, including Saudi Arabia. More than 60% of their weapons come from America, less than 1% from China. Unless Beijing can bridge that gap, such peace plans will have few takers. Speaking of America and its problematic allies, Turkey got some good news on Monday. The US has cleared an F-16 upgrade package for them. The deal is worth around $259 million. As you would expect, the State Department is sticking to the routine script. Turkey is a long-standing NATO ally, and the package will increase interoperability. All true, but that's not the full story. The US and Turkey have been playing an interesting game. On the one hand, it's no secret that Joe Biden does not like Recep Tayyip Erdogan. In 2020, in fact, he called Erdogan an autocrat, even suggested helping the Turkish opposition parties. His predecessor, Donald Trump, had better relations. And yet, in late 2020, he slapped CAATSA sanctions on Turkey. CAATSA stands for Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act. Here's how it works.